to stitch those for Christmas. Actually, that's what I'll be doing after I get off the webinar tonight. So anyway, don't forget to download those. And our inspiration webinars are uploaded, the ones that have been recorded, so that you can watch them at a later date. Or if you missed the webinar entirely, you can go back and watch it. Thank you for that. And now I have a design page open. I am in my block piecer. And there's some things that we can do in this program that allow us to audition. Sometimes, and let me just come over here and select a block, sometimes the block isn't exactly what we want it to be. I'm in the geese blocks, and I'm going to select this spinning geese. And I just brought it in at 8 inches, which is the default, and that's fine because I'm not actually stitching it out. I'm just playing with it right now. So here's my block. I can come down to the bottom right-hand corner down here and click the minus sign to remove any extra colors. So now I'm down, as you can see here in the bottom left-hand corner, to the 3 colors that make up this design. I like the block fairly well, but you know, I always want to kind of put a little personal touch on it. So I think this might look better if I change this block around. Okay, so I'm just selecting all of the patches that are in the center of this quadrant, and if I rotate it twice, ooh, it still fits, but that is going into the circle instead of going around in a circle. So maybe we'll just have all the geese fly in together head on in this one. Give it a little different look. An easier way to do that than selecting all of them, you know, with our select tool, you can click and drag around and it makes a square. Well, unfortunately, this is a square on point. So let me show you a little trick that I frequently use here. I'm going to select everything by doing Control-A and then rotate it 45 degrees. Now, all I have to do is select this square instead of each individual patch and rotate it a couple of times that way. The same with the square on the bottom. Let's scooch down a little or out a little. And I'm going to rotate that one twice. Now, I have all of the geese pointing in. And I'm trying to decide if I like that very well or not. I think I might try selecting all of the center pieces here and making those white by right-clicking on the white color, the thread color, which is the block color. Yeah, I don't really like that. So I'm going to click Undo. Now maybe I want to click the light green one in all of these and make it white by right-clicking. Oh, and then I've got like 4 geese and you know, that's okay. Trying to decide exactly what I want to do with it. And maybe I want to select these 2 blocks or these 2 patches on each side and see what happens if I make them the dark green. I kind of like that because I think, let me select everything again and rotate it back the way it was. I'm kind of liking that. But I don't know what it looks like if there's multiple blocks of this together. So here's a trick I use quite a bit. I'm going to select all of the block. I could do Control-A or drag a box around it. And then up here in the top, I want to group it so it stays together just like it is. Then I can right-click and say Copy, right-click, Paste, and scooch it over to the side here and line it up next to it so that I get 2 blocks next to each other. Now I can scooch that in by holding the Control key down and using my arrow key to do some finer movements there. And you know, for my purposes right here, I'm just looking at what the effect looks like. Now if I take and select it all again and group that, because it's together pretty well, and then do right-click, copy, right-click, paste, and it just pastes it right on top, and pull it down and line it up with my grid. Then I can see what it looks like as it gets bigger. And now looking at that, I think that might be too much dark green. So I could go back in and change colors and audition things differently. Perhaps I want all of these squares to be the light green. That might be kind of interesting. So let me select everything and ungroup up here at the top. Then get rid of this. And I could just do undo to get back to my original block and get rid of that. And change these side pieces by clicking on them.
Do you hold down the control key?
Oh, yes, Dory, I do. Thank you very much for pointing that out. I hold the control key if I'm selecting multiple objects. And then just right-click down in the bottom left-hand corner on the color and change that. So now if I wanted to go back and group it, drag a box around it, group it, can right-click, copy, right-click, paste, or whichever way you prefer to do it. I oftentimes use Control, Insert. Now I can't tell you how I do it, I just know how I do it. Okay, so there's 2 blocks, and let's see if I do another group so they don't come apart. And Control Insert, and then Shift Insert, that's what it is, just like copy and paste with the right click, or using my tools up here with copy and paste. Oh, I think I like that a lot better. What do you think, Dory?
I like that much better. It has impact.
It does. It does. Okay. So now let's get back to one block. I know how I want it set up, and I could group this and make it bigger and actually build the whole quilt if I want to, just to see what it would look like. But, oh, first I have to ungroup by clicking ungroup. Then let's get back to a single block here, delete that. And I'm just using the delete key when I do that. I could right click and delete, but I tend to know where the delete key is on my keyboard. Okay, so we have 3 different colors that we're dealing with here. I'm going to audition fabric now and see how that looks. I can select all of the white by clicking on them, holding down my control key, because my color sequence is kind of a little bit in some ways messed up right now, or it's segregated. If I look over here in my sequence box, the white ones are kind of in between some of the light green ones. Now I'll go up to my fabric icon, click on it. It brings up all my fabric options. I can pick different things. Let's do like this collection. Let's do a real light color here. Well, maybe we'll make it more of a yellow. Okay. Now let's do the dark color. We want some high contrast. So let's select, if I come over to the sequence view, since it looks like most of my dark greens are together, if I click that and review it on the screen, they are. So that was easier than holding down the control key and clicking each one individually. Now I'm going to go to my fabrics, and let's make that one this blue. Okay. And then finally we have our light green, which is down here. Ooh, but that's not all of them. So I can either pick them up here by holding down my control key and clicking, or coming over to my sequence view and holding the control key down and picking them up. Now I have all of the medium green, the lighter green selected. I can come up to my fabric and pick a mixture. Let's see what that one does. I don't know. That doesn't do a whole lot for me. What about you, Dor?
No, I think it's a little too busy. You need a lot more drama in the dark, in the green.
All right, let's do this. I've reselected everything, and I love these bubbles. I think these are so cute. Oh, I really kind of like that. I don't know if you do or not.
Yeah, that's a lot better. Why don't you make the green background of the, gosh.
The dark color?
Dark color. Make it much more dark.
Okay, let's see what happens with that. And we can continue to do this. Actually, Dory, I think you and I could continue to do this all night. Let's see.
Oh, go further down. Go further down. Be a wild and
wild and crazy? Okay.
Wild and crazy girl. Go further down. And 2, 4, 2, 3.
2, 4, 2. Ooh, okay. Let's see that. I'm not a fan, but that's okay because I have my undo key. And I can go back. Here's one of the great things about auditioning. You can go through and change things and then just click the undo key and go back through and undo what you redid, you know? So maybe I like that better, maybe I like that better, and I can play around with it that way. And maybe it's the yellow that's bothering me more than anything. But that is one great way for us to audition our fabrics. Now, another thing that we can do, let me open up a new page, is select a block, and let's do this one right here. Or, yeah, that one's good. We'll do the straight geese. Okay, and there's a little, what is that, a friendship star in the center? If I wanted to incorporate that same color that's in the center in each of these corners, I could do that, and I could audition fabric. However, unless I change the base color of the block, the fabrics aren't going to be differentiated once I go to cut it, if that makes sense. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to reduce my number of fabrics down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So now or my number of colors. So now I'm down to 3 colors. I'm going to select these 4 corners and the center yellow, and I can assign the same fabric to all of those. Let's pick a different palette. I'm going to make all of those
red.
Really bright. Okay, orange polka dot. Then I'll select the blue, and I love polka dots, you know me. And let's make that's the background, so it can be a little smaller. I don't know that those are any smaller. Let's see. Oh, now that was interesting. Did you see what just happened? Because I didn't change the base color of these and I selected the whole color, it changed the corners. That's what's going to happen when you go to cut your fabrics. If you don't change the color of the patches like this. Now I'm making those yellow, and I will change the color of the fabric. Okay. So you can audition different fabrics, but unless you change the base color, they won't be segregated by color when you go to cut them. That's the point I'm trying to make there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Do we have any questions so far, Dory?
So far it has been mainly a matter of what keys you're using to get the items that you're getting. The control key is very important.
The control key gives me control. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. Not only selecting patches or objects, adding to what's already selected. I'm holding the control key down now. But it also gives you fine movements. So if you want to shift these just ever so slightly one way or the other, if I hold down my control key and use my arrow keys, you see how slightly that's moving. That would be very difficult for me to do that with my mouse because I'm not that coordinated. But I can now select these and also put a color in there, and Let's see what stripes look like. You got,
No.
actually, now I do want to point out something to everybody, and that's the reason that I picked a stripe. Stripes are always going to go in the direction that you see them in the tool, in the fabric tool. If I wanted to have these stripes go one way and these stripes go the same way across the goose, you know, to across the goose, the geese. Anyway, if I wanted it to go horizontally, I would actually have to copy that fabric, save it, and rotate it, and then select these as different fabric. Okay, because it will always go in the direction that the fabric is in the fabric catalog. See how it's going upside down? That's the way it will appear on your screen. Okay, does that make sense? But you get an idea color-wise and value-wise what that's going to look like, which in this case, don't make it for a baby quilt because that child will never sleep with all that loud noise from his quilt.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so we might want to do something maybe a little more subtle, but maybe not so bright.
Oh, dear.
What?
Oh, dear. It's bright. It's bright.
It's what? Oh, it is bright.
It is bright.
Let's try that one. Now that one doesn't really bother me because I do like polka dots.
Yes, you do.
I do. Also, you want to understand that with the fabrics, you're looking at value. You see here there's the seam where it's been, I think the technical term for it is tiled. And in these, you can see there's like a seam in here. You're just looking at it to get an idea of what the color and the value looks like. And it may or may not be exactly proportional. If you download an entire line like I've done here that were all the same size to begin with, then the proportions are going to be correct in terms of how they relate to each other. How it relates to the block itself or the patch itself might be a little bit different. But you know, when you go to cut these, and this is one thing I really like because I don't like to refer back to my original sheet. When I cut them, it shows me the fabric in my frames for cutting. So I know which fabric I need to have on there for that cutting, which helps eliminate possible errors or making more potholders than someone who doesn't cook needs.
Can you show us how to do a four block wall panel?
So if I take this and I'm selecting the whole block and I want to group it so that nothing comes apart in the process. So I'm going to select group up here with my tools at the top. Then I can come up here and select copy. I can right click and select copy, or I can do control insert and then shift insert, which is a Microsoft shortcut that if you know them, use them. If you don't worry about it. And I'm going to line it up using my grid to help and put it like that. Well, I'm kind of liking this a little bit more. Now, I have a second block. Both of these are grouped, you can see. But I'm going to group them together again and select it. Control insert, shift insert to paste it. Control insert is to copy, shift insert to paste, and move it down. Oh, I think this is kind of cute. And I could continue. I could select, excuse me. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's really easy to do. For those of you who have PEP, you could take this block, take it into PEP, and use the repeat tool. And with 0 in between each of the designs, or in this case, the artwork, and you'll get it to build whatever you want. So I could do, 3 across and 4 down for like a crib quilt or whatever. But we don't have that tool in here, so I just select and group and keep building it. Control insert, shift insert, and build my block. Okay, so do we have any more questions on my block piecer?
Yes, we do. We have people who are dying to learn. Can I bring my own fabric in?
Oh, absolutely. Bringing your own fabric in is very, very simple. In fact, there's a video on Eileen's Software Saturday blog about that very thing. If you go to the My Today page, or the Today page, by clicking up here at the top of your screen, you can go to Eileen's weekly software inspiration blog, click on it, scroll down, and here you go, adding fabrics to MQE or MPE's fabric library. It's so simple, and she shows you exactly how to do it. It's very easy. So yes, you can take photographs of your fabric. You can grab fabric from off the internet, pictures that are out there from the manufacturers. You can even search if you don't have a digital camera or you don't want to mess with all that. If you Google what's on the name of the fabric that's on the selvage edge of the fabric, chances are you're going to find it somewhere online as a picture of websites that sell fabric, even if it's not a current fabric. If it's really old, you might find it. If it's from the 80s, probably not, but 90s you might. So that's a great way to add fabrics to your library.
Well, for those people that are computer comfortable, you can make a little block of 120 by 120, about 24 pixels deep, and you can have your own perfect library, and you can add it into the library. Would you show them where the library is?
Yeah, library's right here. Oh, I have to select something first. Let me select. Okay, and now it's available to me. So I select the library, and if you right-click, you can add something to add. You just go out online and pull it up. It's something that, like, this is fabric from Lily's Garden that I downloaded. So I selected all of those and added them. You know, you've got all of this moda here and different things. So you could really go in and add, if you download a bunch, put it in the same file or the folders that you want to sort it in, then you can add it into those folders very simply. Okay, since we're about halfway through, I want to switch over to Quilt Embellisher, if that's all right, and see what we can do with auditioning there. We have a few more options. I do have a design page selected, and again, don't forget to download your free designs. These are different than the ones that were in Block Piecer, as you all probably know.
So that means I would have 10.
Yes, and if you have PEP, then you would have 15. Let's go to, well, let's select, we can select a block and do similar to like what we did with Block Piecer, except we're not going to find a way to cut it and all of that, but we can audition fabrics the same way. Or I can come in and select my backdrop tool. And perhaps I have some blocks that I've already done or stitched, and I want to decorate them. For example, let's do, this is a new one I think is really cute, and it's got some great space in there, although the fabrics don't show up that great. I mean, they're a little pixelated because it's, this is only 3.75 inches. It was a very small image that I stole off the internet. So let's undo that and bring in a bigger image that's not quite so pixelated. How about, let's do, let's do this one right here. Okay, so here is a square on point. The fabrics have already been assigned to it. So this would be like if I had sewn this block, which I haven't. I wish I had because I do love the polka dots. And it's 8 inches. Now the first thing you want to do before you audition stitches on this block is to size it to the size of your block, because size matters in decorating your blocks. If this is, and with our backdrop tool, I can come in and define the scale and say, this, from this corner of the center square on point to this one, it says that's 8 inches. And I'm going to say, well, no, not really. It's 7.5 inches. It might have come from my potholder pile. So now, if you look up here in the properties of the backdrop, you see it's a 7.5-inch square design, or backdrop. Now, it's a backdrop, so it's sitting like underneath the palette that I have. I can come up here and select designs from my embellishments. Like, oh, I could do that. That's a little modern, I think, for this block. The butterflies are quite pretty. Celtic. Oh, I'll tell you what I like. I like the circles. Not so much that one. I like this one. Let's do this circle, or this one in the center, and I am going to rotate it so that it goes with the points of the block. Now, remember, let me look in the sequence view here. Every time you bring an embellishment block in, it has an outline already attached to it, and that's artwork, as you can see here, and the run stitches that make up the design. If I am not going to use this artwork to create some other design in the background here, I can just get rid of it, because it really is unnecessary to what I want to do right now. So I'm going to delete that. Then I could actually measure. I know this is 7.5 inches from point to point in this block. I could go to transform and say, let's make the width 7 inches and see what that looks like. So I could be very precise. But that's a little bit too big because my bubbles are going over the edge. So let's make it 6.5. Or I could just squish it using the points around the design. Okay, so now I have that design in the center, and I kind of like that. The next thing I can do is go back to my embellishment designs and pull up the triangle, which is the last one on here, which also works well for a corner. Now, let's move that up toward the corner. And perhaps it's a little big. The first thing I want to do is come over here and delete the artwork, because that just gets in my field of view, and I don't need that. And I can select the design and maybe just squish it down a little this way and position it where I want it. And that looks pretty good. Perhaps it could be a wee bit bigger. I'm just playing.
I like that.
That's kind of pretty. I like that. Now, another thing, I could do is come up here and select artwork, and I'm going to do a triangle. Now, with triangles, they're a little bit funky. I'm just going to make a triangle. And then come over here to the right, or I'm sorry, wrong right, to my left, and select the shape tool. Then I can move the nodes on this triangle to actually fit the triangle of my block, of my corner here. Okay, so I'm going to make it that size. And then, with it selected, maybe I'll convert it to a shape echo. Ooh, you know what? I think I'm going to use a square. Okay, now bear with me, because I really don't want this square. I'm going to change the density, which is just the distance between those stitches. Actually, the square's not too bad. Let me change the density. Let's make it a little bit further apart. And that's not too bad, because it actually follows the pieces there. That's kind of cute. But what I could do is select it, and click on my shape tool, and then move the center of that square down to the center of my block. Then I just get straight lines going across there. And that's kind of a nice effect. So
Ooh,
I can, you like that?
yeah. Yes.
Good. So I can audition different stitches. Maybe I just want a little something in the corner here. And so I'm going to play with the different corners and then eliminate the ones I don't want. Kind of like trying on clothes. We'll make this a rectangle. I'm going to make this rectangle really the same size as the corner square. And then convert that to, if I just wanted to do stitch in the ditch, I'm going to convert that to a run stitch. Oh, first I have to select it and then convert it to a run stitch. Now I've got a stitch in the ditch around each of those corners, which if I don't want a lot of heavy quilting on this would be absolutely perfect. If I wanted to do something a little bit different with that, I could make it stippling. After I select it and click stippling and put stippling in each of those corners. Now, if I want that to be the same color as the thread in here, all I have to do is select it and click on number 10, which is this color, which kind of goes nicely with the green in the background. And of course, I would zoom in and make sure that that fits really well. I could also make that one of the texture stitches, such as, let's see what the diamonds look like. No, I do like that. Reminds me of the windows we had, the leaded glass windows when I was a little girl in my bedroom. Okay. Let's make that fit just a little better. Or I could put anything I want to in there. I can go to advanced stippling and all of those, 294 different designs that are just really fun. And we can, of course, resize them to be any size we want it to be. Let's see, I want something a little on the simple side. What does that one do? I think that might be a little small. Let's change the size up here in the properties box to 15 millimeters. I could probably get it about the same size as that square. Ooh, let's do 45. Because we don't have, okay, that loses a little bit in the translation. Maybe 30. Oh, but of course we can always adjust it with our shape tool here and change the angle line so it goes at an angle. Well, that's kind of interesting. And I would just keep playing until I figure out exactly how I want it. Now this design up here, I'm in shape. I've got to go back to my select tool. I can select it and I could change that to a different color of thread. Let's change it to red. Yeah, I'm not liking that. But I could then select that red. And of course, these are all thread colors, but there's every color in the rainbow and then some in here. If I want to change it to ivory, yeah, I don't like that. But I can audition these designs as much as I want. If I wanted to make this more of a, let's go back to where that was, delete the design out of here and bring in a design from my library. Oops, I've got quilt motifs. Let's look at our free Quilt Embellisher free designs. And I could pull in one of these, like this one, and bring in any design that I own and resize it, audition it, see how it fits in there, and stitch that block. So the possibilities are really limitless between fabric options and design options and stitch options. So do we have any questions right now, Tori, before I move on?
Yes. What are you using for what are you using for inches around each one of the blocks? What is it based on? Half inch, quarter inch, 1 inch?
Oh, you know, my block is a finished, the block that is displayed here is a finished block. It would probably have, unless it's a pot holder, it would have a 1/4 inch seam all the way around it for me to attach it to another block. But when I'm decorating, I'm just dealing with the finished size of the block. Now I know what size it is because when I go to my backdrop tool, it lets me look at all of the properties over here on the right-hand side of my backdrop. Remember in the beginning, I changed the size of this to 7.5 inches square. So, and I can actually make it lighter, like really light, or darker.
Okay, does that make it 7.5 inches finished and unfinished?
Finished.
And what is the difference?
Finished. The unfinished size, so we always deal, typically, in this program we deal with the finished size because this could already be in a quilt. It could be an unfinished block that I'm going to then finish, which when I finish it, I want to make sure that this little point up here is a point and not a sawed-off point. So I'm dealing with the finished size right now because that's what I want to decorate, the finished size, whether the block is already in a quilt or it's unfinished, waiting to become a pot holder or go into a quilt or a pillow or whatever. And I don't know, you know, I could have a 1/2 inch seam allowance around here just depending on how I created the block. Typically with quilting it's a 1/4 inch, which would be around the outside. So I want to be just slightly in for my design, so just in case I'm a little bit off when I put it together, it still works. Does that answer the question?
That does, and one more question on that line. Each of those parts of those blocks that are sewn together, which would be the green and the pink, those would be all 1/4 inch, would they not?
Well, there's probably, I would say underneath this, there's probably a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance.
Okay.
This is the finished block because you see how the points come together. This is how we want it to look. So when we go to quilt it or add embellishment to it, whether it's actually a block or not, and remember, Dime doesn't employ police to go around and make sure you're using my quilt embellisher just for quilt blocks. You could embellish fabric with it and, you know, do anything you want to with it. So it doesn't have to go onto a quilt block. But that's the example that we're showing today. And yes, this would be a finished block. So chances are there's a seam allowance under here of some length, probably a 1/4 inch. It just depends on the way it was put together.
All right.
Okay. Now, when I go to stitch this, because let's say I don't have an 8x8 hoop, what I will do is select a design, like this design right here. I want to see how big it is. Oh, and that will fit within my 8x8 hoop, which is not exactly 8 inches by 8 inches. So I can take this design and copy it, open up a new design, and paste it. Then save it, do File, Save As, and save that design in the format I need for my machine and call it whatever I want to call it. The other thing I will do with it is, and then, I mean, I may have a whole quilt of these blocks, and they're different fabrics, but I'm putting this design in the center of all of them. The other thing I'm going to do is print a template. Now, with this design on here, I can come over to the Print Template or Print Preview option and bring up my template printing screen where I can, what I printed last time. I think I printed artwork. I'll go to my settings, And these are my page settings for an 8.5 by 11 inch paper. I maybe want to print the backdrop. Oh, I don't have a backdrop on this one, so that doesn't matter. I want to print it actual size because I'm going to print this template on Dime's new, I'm so excited about it, printable template paper that has paper release on the back of it. It's sticky, but you can see through it, so you can see your fabric underneath, and it helps you get rid of a lot of errors. I'm going to print crosshairs. It's one color. I don't need a color analysis. I really don't need a header. I don't have any artwork. I could print it in 3D. I definitely want it to print the stitches, which is why nothing is showing up right here. Then I click OK. Here's my template. All right. Now notice, and I love that this feature is in here, we have an arrow now for the top of the design. Now, it doesn't really matter on this one. You're going to know, you could have 4 possible tops to this design, and you'd be okay. But sometimes if it's a design that goes a particular way, you want to know what the top is. I'm going to print this out on my template paper, and then maybe trim around it. If I trim off that arrow, I'm going to make sure that I draw it on there just so I know what the top is. And then I can stick it directly onto my quilt or my quilt block, and it's removable. I can put it on and take it off and put it on and take it off, so that when I stick it down and I have it perfectly aligned with my block, then I will locate the needle to the center of this crosshair, which is actually a misnomer. What I'm doing is I'm moving the hoop until the needle is over the center of the crosshair. So I move the pantograph, the arm that moves your hoop around. It's a pantograph is what it's called technically, and it just gives you different XY coordinates, and this is 0, 0. So that's where I want the center of my design to be. I line it up there, I peel off my template, I stitch my design, and it's going to come out perfect.
Oh, that is nifty.
So I not only need to print one of them, even if I've got, 15, 20, 30, 75 different blocks using the same design, I just need to print it out once. Now if I go back here over to my other design, let me show you a couple of other options on printing templates, because this is another way to see it on your quilt, is to actually print it out. So, and you do want to print a template in actual size just to make sure you haven't messed up measurements somewhere. So I will take this and go to my print preview, and here's my whole design on there. I'm going to change the settings because I want it to include the backdrop. So now I can see exactly what it looks like, and print it out. I don't have to print the crosshairs. I could print this out and take it over to my mom's house and go, so Mom, what do you think? Does this look good, for what I'm going to put on your quilt? Whatever you want to do. So a great tool to use. And that template paper is awesome. So check with your local dealer and see if they have it in yet. If they don't, tell them to get it, because it's amazing.
All right.
Now, one other thing. Do I need to pause for questions?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. The other thing I want to show you is, here's my backdrop tool again. I'm going to pull up a backdrop. This time, it's going to be a whole quilt. Here's an Irish chain quilt. Now, I actually saved this quilt from EQ7, but it could have been that. It could have been one that a picture from a download I did online. It could have been a picture from a magazine or a pattern, whatever I have. But I know that this quilt is actually 72 inches wide, so I'm going to set up my backdrop. And when I do that, it makes the height, well, 91.98, which is close enough to 92. It's probably closer than my stitching would be, because we always want to do our designs in the size that they are going to be put on that quilt. Now, here's the beauty of our software is that we have this huge design palette. I do not have a hoop. That is 92, will allow me to stitch something that is 72 inches by 92 inches long, 72 inches wide. Yet, I think they're working on one, but in the meantime, I've got to deal with the limitations that I have with regard to my hoop size. But what I can do is audition the designs and see what they look like on here. Now, I could come up here again to my embellishment designs and use those. I could create artwork and convert those to stitches, or another option is to come over here on the right-hand side. I have collected a lot of quilting designs over the years, and I will pull up a quilting motif. And here we have lots of different options. And this is kind of Irish chain. I'm thinking maybe a little kind of a Celtic looking design. So I'll scroll down and let's see, this one's pretty. Let me just pull that in and see what it looks like. And I'll scroll into that part of my quilt, resize it. And you know, that would work okay if I was just, and I could do it by measurements, if I was just going to do inside of, you know, these lines. I'm going to push that in a little bit, and of course I can resize it that way. But I really want it to get up into this little point here because then it makes my quilt look like it was much more difficult to make. And the reason for that is, let me show you what the blocks in this quilt are, which is why I want to audition the entire quilt and not for a block. If I select my rectangle, here is the actual block as they're constructed. This is a 2-block quilt. Here is one. Okay, do you see how that, let me select the backdrop and fade it out just a little bit. Okay, so where'd my artwork go? Select my artwork. Oh, now I've lost it. Okay, so there's one block. Let's make, well, I'm just going to fill that in so you can see. We'll fill. Okay, so that's one block. It's the center of that open space. The next block, or the second block for this design, is actually, we've still got the rectangle selected. I'm going to select red for a color. Is actually the one right next to it, right here. This is the second block. And if I select, so you see, part of the points of the open part are in this block. So if I select fill, you'll see those are the 2 blocks that make up this whole quilt. I'm going to delete them both and show you that's why I want to get up in this little corner, because then people will go, oh, how in the world did you ever piece that? Well, at least that's what I hope they think. So I'm going to come back over here and look at some different options. Let's get something that's a little, ooh, here's one, a little pointier. And I want to rotate that with my rotate tool so it's on point. I'm going to spread it out a little bit. And let's see if we can't make this one look kind of cool here. All right. So there, that's an option. I can try some other ones. Let's try this one. I think that one's cool as well. And maybe I want to do more than one. Again, I'll rotate it, resize it, center it, and I would probably be a little bit more exact in my measurements, but this gives me a good idea. Auditioning. Yeah, I like that one better, so I'm going to ditch this one. Let's see, perhaps there's another one that's, I like the points on the top. That one's kind of nice. Let's pull that in. And I'll rotate it. Line it up here. Pull it out. and just play and audition. You know, you can spend a lot of time auditioning designs. Actually, I think this one kind of fits the best. This one goes over that corner just a smidge. So I could play with other designs. I could also come in and pick up, let's see, where is, I've got some corner designs. I think it's further down. And I have a lot of quilting designs. Oh, there it is. I'm not really sure what the difference between the three of those is. I think it's size, but that's okay because I can resize in this program. And I'm going to rotate that one as well and put it in here. Maybe make it a little bigger. I do kind of like that. What do you think, Dory?
I like it. Can I change the color threads on it?
Sure. What color would you like to see?
Red. Everything is red, dear.
What do you mean everything is red?
Everything is red. In my life, everything is red. It's my favorite color.
That
you
is
like
your favorite
polka dots,
color.
I like red.
Okay, well then we will change it to red. Let me rotate this again and move it up. So that's okay. I could put a different little design in here, or I could make these larger. Either way, and yes, we'll change all of these to red. There you go. And if we look at it in 3D, we get a little bit better view.
There we go.
So yes, and I could even audition, for those of you who may not have explored the thread library too much, you can, let's see, isochord. Oh, let's see, who's got some marathon, I bet. Somebody has some variegated thread. Well, I know Floriani does. Let's look at theirs. Floriani, oh, they have some cotton variegated. There we go. Now, we're kind of far out, so it's hard to see exactly what that looks like, but you can add your own variegated threads into this. You measure the length of the color change, and you can audition and see how that looks. So that's another fun option.
That's good, but not as good as red.
Okay, we'll switch it back to red. That's why we audition things, so that we see how we like them and, you know, what we want to do. Do we have any other questions, Dory? Because we're kind of getting short on time at this point. One thing I will mention, after you decorate your entire quilt, one of the things that you want to do is select the different elements. Like I would select this one, copy it to a new page, and save it. If I have a long arm quilting machine that has the robotics on it, and I want to do a whole row, I could select that whole thing. You know, I repeat these going across and then select that whole row and save that as one design. But I don't have a long arm quilting machine. So, but one could. So, did you find any other questions for me?
Only one was, can we make our own thread charts?
Absolutely, you can. In fact, you know, you can set up your threads and you can mix brands. You can do whatever you want. And if you bring in a design, let's see. Let me go up here and pull in a design. We'll do my black piece of free designs. Those are all one color. Here, I'll bring this in. Maybe we want to put a heart in the middle of this. Make it a little bigger because we can resize. Okay, now I could select this design, go into my change palette, and it's bringing it all up. Change that to my own thread chart, okay, which I haven't done that, so I don't have one in here, but let's say I created one and I called it Isocord. Then it would change all of my thread colors in here to Isocord based on the color that was there. Or I can select them individually. Okay, that's just a little display issue, and if I wanted to select them individually, then I would say OK, then come back down here and, oops, let's narrow it down to just the colors we're dealing with. I could select that aqua color or turquoise and say, yeah, I'd really rather that be a emerald green, and change it. So, yes, very easy to do.
I like the red.
Yeah, I knew you would. One other thing real quick, because sometimes with patterns we get designs with the pattern, or there's motifs in a magazine. You can select one, such as this Friendship Blossom, and if it's drawn with solid lines, this does not work with dotted lines, and you want to make it whatever size it needs to be with the backdrop, then simply select your run stitch, select your magic wand, hold down the control key, the shift key, so that it's red instead of blue for red work. It'll do a single run stitch all through that design. I'll dismiss the backdrop, and there you go. I just digitized that. And I could actually turn it into a double run or any type of run stitch I want, including a bean stitch, a motif stitch, or even crazy quilting. So auditioning different stitches in my quilting designs is another option. So there we are. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming tonight, and please let us know if you have questions. We will be posting the webinar soon, and that's all I've got. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you so much, Tamara, and again, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful and safe holiday this month.
Good night.
Good night.